Welcome back to another episode of Psych-Cinematic. Today, at the time of recording this podcast, it is the season finale date for Shogun. And it's actually a time-traveling podcast because my guest today is going to be joining me from Tokyo, Japan, where it's actually the next day, so no longer the season finale date. My guest today is one of the producers on Shogun. Her name is Eriko Miyagawa. So without further ado, here's Eriko. Eriko, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time. I had previously messaged you about your role as producer because I feel like the title of producer in filmmaking is extremely vague because it could be such a broad umbrella that the duties fall under. There's so many ways that you could contribute into producing any piece of work in filmmaking. And so I'm curious if you can elaborate what your role was for the listeners and then also then get into a little bit of your background.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, there are typically a lot of producers on any given show. My primary responsibility on Shogun, as with my many previous work, is that I specialize on sort of bridging languages and culture and systems of filmmaking. So I speak both Japanese and English, and I'm consider myself bicultural, having spent many years in the US as well as being born and raised in Japan. And I'm familiar with different types of filmmaking, how it's done in Japan as well as how it's done in Hollywood. So my primary job, broadly speaking, is to sort of bridge the gap and move things forward. Yeah, I was born and raised in Japan. I left Japan when I was 18 to study in the US, studied foreign service, but and I graduated. I didn't know what to do with my life. And then I hear about this film called Kill Bill, which is shooting in Beijing, directed by Quentin Tarantino. I was a huge fan, and that he is looking for a interpreter who speaks Japanese and English in Beijing. So I got myself a one-way ticket. I was in Washington, D.C. at that time, and I put myself on the plane. I showed up, and I got my first job working on a film set. I was an interpreter on set, and I fell in love with filmmaking. It was a lot of fun. It felt like it's everything that I was looking for, and then that sort of kick started, and it was not like a sort of clean clean path. It was had a lot of difficulties, but I kept at it, and slowly moved my way up from being an interpreter to coordinator or liaison. I think my big break was Martin Scorsese's Silence. I worked on it as a co-producer, but basically doing what I ended up doing for Shogun is a lot of interpreting, but a lot of, bridging culture and system and wearing many hats.
That's really amazing. I didn't know that about Kill Bill. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Was it like stiff competition with, like did you have to beat any other people out for the job or did you just nail it right away and you just
I
happened to
think,
be the one person who could do it?
well, because it was Beijing and they needed
Mhm.
somebody Japanese and who could speak Japanese and English. And Beijing at that time, it was 2002,
Mhm.
and it is not the Beijing that is today. It was still very, it was just starting to open up. So expat community was quite small. I think, in fact, Kill Bill was like the first non-Chinese film to be shot at Beijing Film Studio. Beijing Film Studio was created to create propagandas for the Communist Party.
Mhm.
And I think I could be wrong, but I think Kill Bill was the first American show to be shot there. So everything was new. Um, and yeah, lucky for me, they struggled to find an interpreter.
So did you fly out there without knowing that you had the job?
Oh no, I didn't know. I didn't know. And it's like, it's not
Wow.
like it's an interpreter, so it's not like you can, I mean, I didn't have contact of producers or anybody who's actually working on it. So I showed up.
So how did you even find out about that position in the first place? Did you have like an agent who told you about it?
Through friends. I went to school in the US, but I studied Chinese. So I
Mm.
had spent a semester in Beijing. So I had a bunch of friends. So it was through email chain that was passed around in the expat community in Beijing at that
Wow.
time. Yeah.
That's if that isn't just that trickle down effect of networking, I don't know what is. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was raw.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was,
So, what's it like working with Quentin Tarantino?
oh, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. He loves filmmaking so much. I
Hmm.
remember, so we would do multiple takes and, there'll be a good take. And he's like, okay, that's good. And then instead of moving on, he would always say, okay, we'll just do one more take because we love making movies. And then he will just do another take just for the sake of it.
That's really
Um,
cool.
yeah, I think, it was contagious, how happy he was to be
Hmm.
on set and making movies. And so
Hmm.
yeah, I had a blast.
So it's funny that you worked on Kill Bill because I was just saying how now that I've watched the entire series of Shogun, I was not expecting it to end that way at all. Um, and I won't give away like too many spoilers, but I think on episode 9, when Lady Mariko was trying to leave Osaka, I was expecting like maybe some like crazy Kill Bill stuff because she had been like very
Yeah,
reserved, but it seemed like her vengeance was
yeah.
sharp. But I didn't realize that's how that was going to shake out. And so it's just funny,
Mhm.
the two different sides of the spectrum and that you've worked on.
Yeah, yeah. There is, yeah, she's surrounded.
Hmm. Yeah. So when you got the job for Shogun, did you find it important to read the novel?
Yes, yes. I did read a novel both in Japanese and English.
Oh, wow.
Um,
That's a huge book.
yeah, yeah. I mean, read it quickly, but obviously the script was the most important thing.
Hmm.
So that was my primary focus. But script is in English. So I think it was important for me to sort of always have it in my background and understand how the Japanese translation was
Hmm.
of the original novel, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Then you would be the perfect person to ask, how well does the series stick with the book?
I think very well. I think
Hmm.
Justin and Rachel, they devoured the book and they have so many respect for the book.
Hmm.
And they worked so closely with Michaela Clavell. Um, but obviously made it their own.
Hmm.
Um, but I think, in essence, I think they stayed really true to the book.
Well, that's really cool to hear. It's always a disappointment for the people who are super fans of the book when it
Hmm.
doesn't feel like the original source material is respected.
Hmm.
So that's really cool to hear. Uh,
Yeah.
do you know if Justin and Rachel? Maybe you're not at liberty to say. I think that's what you said. Justin and Rachel. They're the
Yeah. Yeah.
showrunners.
Yeah. Justin, the
Um,
showrunner. Justin and Rachel are co-creators.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know if they have any aspirations of adapting any
Mhm.
of James Clavell's other books?
I don't know,
Would
but
you
they'll be
would you
very
join
good at
them
it. I would love
if they wanted
to.
to? Okay,
I'd
cool.
love to. I speak some Chinese.
Yeah, I was going to read the book before Shogun came out, but then I saw how long it was. I was like, I don't have time.
I know.
Yeah.
It's thick. It's thick.
Digging into your role, is most of your work done before shooting starts, or are you doing a lot of prep and then you're still super active on set? That is aside from what I saw on Instagram that you and Rachel, I think, were playing experienced prostitutes 1 and 2 in episode
Thank you
8.
for noticing that. I was in a way more active, and became increasingly more active throughout the shoot and post. Yeah, I was in the producer tent with Justin, uh, Rachel, Hero,
Hmm.
Ed, McDonald every single day. from call time to wrap. So many things happen. There's always last minute dialogue changes. A lot of time working very closely with Hiro, making sure the authenticity side of things. Because Hiro's very busy, obviously.
Playing Toranaga. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, making sure the Japanese side of things is always portrayed accurately, are you also working with the visual effects team to make sure that what they're adding, since there's a lot of visual effects in there, like looks correct and accurate for the time?
Here and there, yeah. Like I think it's mostly in post, but sometimes things happen on set. There's one time there was cherry blossom and plum in the background, and it doesn't happen at the same time. And it's very
Gotcha.
small. But then, I would reach out to Michael and be like, is this something that could be fixed in post? And things like that happen.
Right. Gotcha. With your job being to have Japan be portrayed accurately and bridging this gap between Japanese and an English production, did you have any reservations about the fact that it was going to be shot in Canada as opposed to Japan?
FX and the team did extensive research and scouting in Japan. So I was pretty aware that what's possible and what's not possible. And also there was COVID, which made it difficult to be flexible. So I didn't have much or any doubt or reservation of this being shot in Vancouver. I think with period film and of the scale, of Hollywood scale, I knew that they required a big sound stage, multiple ginormous sound stages. They needed a big piece of land near the beach, was very difficult to find in Japan. And what's amazing about Vancouver, no wonder it's called North Hollywood, and so many films are shot there, is that all of these awesome locations that you see in Shogun are within, I don't know, 45 to 1 hour drive from downtown Vancouver. And that's never going to happen in Tokyo. Like in Tokyo, you can drive for 2 hours and you'll still be in the city.
Yeah.
So I think it was the right decision. I think it looks cinematic. It looks fantastic. And as long as they were willing to bring Japan to Vancouver, bring in the experts, craftsmen, artists from Japan to compensate for what's not available in Vancouver, I thought it was the right decision.
Yeah. Do you know by chance how many Japanese actors and crew members were brought out there just for this project?
Yeah, I know exactly, but I don't have it off of my head. But I'm the one who brought them. But I think we brought in like about 15 Japanese actors from Japan, and obviously we brought in Japanese actors from Canada and the U.S. All the cast who has dialogues, they're all Japanese, and then Japanese crew. We have 4 people in the wig department, 1 costume, 3 Shosa movement coach, and 1 general advisor. So 1, 2, 3, 9 and 10.
Is that like 25 maybe total? Somewhere
Yeah,
around there?
yeah, between 25 to 30.
Okay. It's funny that that number was escaping you, but you could remember exactly how many people were in each department.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I forgot the stunts, but
Oh, stunts. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And mind you, it's during COVID, so it was very difficult to bring people from Japan. Like special visa needed to be applied, and it's very difficult. But yeah, between around 30.
Right when it was like March 2020, my wife and I were going to go to Japan for the second time, and it was like right when everything was shutting down, and we're like, you gotta be kidding me, no way. And
Yeah.
Japan hadn't quite shut down everything. It was just it was like all the places that we had bought tickets to, and that those kinds of things were shutting down. But
Right.
then for like the next couple years, we just kept checking the tourism websites, and it's like, man, I guess we can't go to Japan like anytime soon. So I understand that visa issue must have been a real headache, and just the
Yeah.
logistics of all that. I'm curious, and maybe you can't do it with ease, because when you're listening to the Japanese, you could just understand the Japanese. But like when
Yeah.
you're watching Shogun, I don't know if the subtitles distract you, but if you're reading the subtitles with what the Japanese actors are saying, it comes across as like a almost one-to-one or a direct one-to-one translation for you.
I mean, first of all, there's no such thing as direct translation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because languages are so different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was, but I was heavily involved in this process from the beginning to the end. Um, but kudos to Justin and Rachel. They took the time and care. But because basically, if it's okay for me to go way back, the script is written and then it's translated by professional translators to do the best version of the accurate to capture all the nuance and of the original English. But with that, the dialogues wouldn't sound period or authentic, or somebody in something a human being would be speaking. So the dialogues go through a polishing process that's done by a playwright. Her name is Kyoko Moriwaki, who lives in Kyoto, who's done a ton of Japanese period shows. So she would polish it. And then that comes back to us. Hiro and I would polish it more.
Mm-hmm.
And then actors would polish it more. And we would be polishing and then tweaking until we rolled. At the end, Justin had all the Japanese dialogues that would end up. He had it retranslated them back into English, kind of word to word, so that he understands what has been done throughout this polishing process. Him and Rachel went through every single dialogue and readjusted what ended up as a subtitle. So it's a lot of work, but I think like wherever appropriate, they sort of picked what was in Japanese, what works in English, and then when it wasn't appropriate, they kept the Japanese the English subtitle as is. If that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
You illuminated something that I didn't even think about: the fact that it starts in English, then Japanese, then English. And
Yeah.
that's a really interesting way of kind of like double checking the work on the way back to make sure that
Yeah.
it is still staying pretty close.
Right. Oh yeah. So that was your question. It was
Yeah.
what was accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah, accurate as it can be.
Yeah, that's really crazy, and way more work than I anticipated for the script when I asked the question.
Yeah.
Have you been able to get a feel for what the reception of Shogun is like in Japan?
Well, I mean, it's doing really well. Um, in Japan, it's on Disney Plus, and it's a relatively new platform in Japan, but it's really driving the subscribers number. And yeah, it's doing really well. A lot of the actors, obviously Hiro has always been a huge star, but many younger actors are not famous in Japan. But I think this is gonna, yeah, I think a lot of people are interested in this new
Mhm.
actors, and I think it's doing really really well.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And it's almost funny to hear that some of those actors aren't famous in Japan, because I feel like now that they're on Shogun, it is such a hit, and I felt like I didn't see any bad acting in the series, that I feel like the job offers will just keep coming, for
Mhm.
lots of these guys.
Yeah, they're so talented. They're so
Hmm.
talented. For many of them, for most of them, it was their first time working on non-Japanese project. But I'm so proud of them, and oh, they're gonna do so well in Japan and abroad.
I saw, I think a few weeks ago on Instagram, a post about the food on set. At least one day was like traditional Japanese food. And I'm curious if that was something that happened all the time, just to make the set feel more immersive, or maybe even more at home for some of the Japanese
Mhm.
cast and crew. Um, and if that was something that was done all the time, but then also if maybe there were other things that were done fun like that for
Mhm.
everyone behind the scenes.
Yeah. So. It was done every day.
Wow,
It
that's
was
awesome.
awesome. Chef, her name is Moe Nozaki. Yeah, she was our Japanese chef, and she made us Japanese home cooked meal every single day. It made a huge difference. Food is so important.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, if it's like a few weeks is one thing, but when you're shooting for 10 months,
Yeah.
um, food gives comfort, and it really helped. I think first it was just meant for Japanese crew, cast and crew, but then obviously everybody became interested and it kept growing, growing. The demand
Yeah.
kept growing. She, for specific Japanese holidays that called for certain celebratory food, she made those, which was always fun. For Girls' Day, which is March 3rd, we typically have chirashi sushi, which is like, sushi rice with like sashimi and, omelette. And, it's just very colorful uh, rice dish. And she made those. And we were all so excited.
Yeah,
So that was
I'm
really
jealous just
great.
listening to this.
I know. Oh, she was the best.
Was it a prerequisite for the Japanese actors to have to be bilingual to be able to, take direction from the director if they weren't a Japanese speaker, or are there translators there for that?
Oh, there are translators for that. We
Okay.
just wanted the best.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we just wanted the best. So obviously, Mariko, having to like for Mariko, you need a high command of English, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and Anna's a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. But besides that, we just wanted the best, and we had translators available.
You guys didn't want to bring her on for a second job to actually be the translator on set like she is in the show?
Anna,
Yeah.
she's a little expensive, but yeah,
Yeah.
but she's so sweet. The actors were all sort of living in the same building, and Tokuma, who played Hiromatsu, and he would, have questions about how to operate a washing machines, or like it's all in English. And
Mm-hmm.
then he would call Anna, and Anna will read a screenshot and tell him how to how to use it and
Yeah.
stuff like that. She deserves the credit.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my last question is selfish for me. The next time I go to Japan, what should I do or where should I go?
As in Shogun inspired
Yeah. Or like,
sites in general.
yeah, Shogun inspired sites, or it could be anything from an amazing restaurant to
Yeah.
like just a hidden gem that is not, like the bamboo forest of Kyoto, like one that's very well known.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, in terms of Shogun sites, most of them are in the western part of Japan, so Kyoto and Osaka.
Hmm.
Obviously, Nijojo Castle is a must because it was built by Tokugawa Ieyasu, who inspired Toranaga's character.
Hmm.
So the ceremonial meeting hall is pretty much inspired by Nijojo Castle. So if you're a Shogun fan, that castle is a must. And then most of the temples in Kyoto were built in the Middle Age, sort of
Hmm.
medieval, like that. So near the time of Shogun. So I think that'll be very interesting. Ryuanji, very famous temple,
Hmm.
has this beautiful rock garden. Obviously, Osaka Castle.
So I have been there. I
You have been
actually,
there.
yeah, I have a samurai poster that I got there. That's probably like the most tourist thing, but I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get at least one souvenir here. But yeah, when I was watching the show, I was like, either like Osaka Castle. It's probably been through a bunch of wars, so like now it looks very touristy. Like a lot of stuff's blocked off on the
Yeah.
inside, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah, it's a
more just like a
museum.
yeah.
Yeah, if you want to experience the interior, there's Himeji Castle,
Hmm.
which is amazing. It's World Heritage, and I recommend a walking tour of it, but you can really experience the castle interior.
Hmm.
So Himeji Castle, I think original Shogun was shot there. Oh, and Nanban Museum, if you are in Osaka in May or November, it's
Okay.
a very special museum that's only open in May and November. And And it has many things that were brought in from the West, like Portugal and Spain at that time. And they have Garcia's Rosary. So that's Mariko's Rosary.
That's
It's
really
very
cool.
special.
Why
Yeah.
is it only open May and November?
I don't know. I'm assuming because of not a super high demand, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe they have
Yeah.
another reason.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about Shogun. I hope you've been enjoying the fact that the finale just aired, and hopefully you have some downtime to kind of take a breather because it sounds like you worked really hard.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.